You ever wonder how you can buy something from a tiny shop halfway across the globe with just one click? I mean, for us, it's super simple. But for that business, selling to the whole world is one of the most ridiculously complex challenges out there. So today, we're going to try and solve the global payments puzzle.
Just think about it for a second. If you want to sell in another country, you've got to deal with their currency, right, and their favorite way to pay, which, by the way, might be some local e-wallet you've never even heard of, not just a credit card. Plus, you have to navigate a totally different set of financial rules. Now, imagine doing that for dozens of countries. It's a total maze.
So how do you even begin to solve a puzzle this massive? Well, here's our game plan. We'll start with the puzzle itself. Then we'll introduce Rapyd's pretty elegant solution. After that, we'll peek under the hood to see how it all works, check out how they built their huge network, and finally, we'll talk about why any of this really matters for the future of business online.
All right, let's dive into Section 1, the global payment puzzle. We're really going to focus on that friction, the real-world headache that any online business gets when it tries to grow beyond its own backyard.
It's kind of like needing a completely different power adapter for every single country you visit, but for money. One country loves bank transfers, another's all about a specific mobile wallet, and a third relies on some local card network. For a business, building each one of those connections is a technical nightmare, and that's not even getting into the legal and regulatory minefield.
So, what if you could have one universal adapter that just worked for all of it? Well, that's exactly the promise of a company called Rapyd.
And this is where Rapyd enters the picture. They looked at that tangled-up mess of global payments and came up with a radically simple idea. Instead of building hundreds of different connections, a business just needs to connect to Rapyd's single API. Now, you can think of an API as a kind of pre-built bridge that lets different software talk to each other. So it's one bridge that connects you to Rapyd's entire global network.
And look, this isn't just some catchy marketing slogan. This is their entire mission. With that single connection, a business can do it all. Accept payments from customers, send money out to suppliers or workers, and manage all of those funds anywhere in the world.
What Rapyd is doing here is a perfect example of something called FinTech as a service. You can think of them as providing all the super complex financial plumbing, the pipes, the connections, all the licenses, so that other companies don't have to. They handle all that complexity behind the scenes, and they make their money on the transactions that flow through their system.
Okay, so let's pop the hood for a minute. What are the actual pieces that make this universal adapter tick?
It really boils down into four main products that cover the entire life of a dollar or euro or yen. First, there's Collect, which lets a business take payments in all those local ways we talked about. Second, Disperse, lets them send money out across borders. Third, Wallet, gives them a ledger system to hold and manage all that cash. And finally, Issuing lets them create their own cards. It's a complete end-to-end system. And the engine running all of this is a really modern, scalable tech stack. It's built on Amazon Web Services, it uses flexible databases, and its architecture is what they call API first, and based on microservices. In plain English, that just means it's designed from the very beginning to be super reliable, easy for developers to use, and able to handle enormous global scale without breaking a sweat. So now we know how it works. But let's talk about the sheer scale of the network they've managed to build. Because let's be honest, the technology is only as good as the network it connects to.
First, just look at the reach. Rapyd lets businesses manage their money in over 190 countries. That's pretty much the entire planet. And remember those local power adapters? Their one API plugs you into over 900 different local payment methods. This is so crucial because it lets customers pay in the way they already know and trust. And finally, this isn't just a product, it's a platform. You've got a community of over 50,000 developers actively building things on top of Rapyd's infrastructure. That right there shows you just how powerful these tools really are.
So how in the world did they build such a massive network so fast? Well, their secret was smart, strategic acquisitions. Instead of trying to build everything from scratch, they just went out and bought key local companies, Valitor to get a stronger foothold in Europe, Neat to add capabilities in Asia, and the huge PayU GPO to get a massive presence across Latin America and Africa.
So we've seen the problem, we've seen the tech, and we've seen the scale. But why does this actually matter? Let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture here, because this is about way more than just payments. This is about the future of embedded finance.
This slide says it all, really. The before picture is just a mess, juggling tons of integrations, crazy high engineering costs, and a painfully slow path to going global.
With infrastructure like Rapyd, it becomes a single, much cheaper integration that lets a company get to market way, way faster. So the key takeaway is this. Rapyd's platform basically erases complexity and puts international growth on fast forward. But even more important, it provides the fundamental building blocks that allow any company, whether you're a marketplace, software platform, whatever, to seamlessly embed financial services right into its own products.
And that leaves us with a really fascinating question to think about. When all that incredibly hard work of moving money around the world becomes as simple as using an API, it just shatters a huge barrier to innovation. So if any business can now act like a global fintech company, what gets built next?